Welcome back to Newsday. Let's bring in our panel. Labor MP, member for Bennelong, Jerome Laxale, and Liberal MP, member for Casey, Aaron Violi. Gentlemen, great to see you both. I know you both got a swing to you in this election, which is something that I'm sure you're both pleased about. Jerome, first of all to you, though, on one of the policies, I know the government took it to the election, but is the superannuation tax on funds upwards of $3 million, is that shaping as the first political and policy hurdle and stumbling block for the government? Andrew Clennell reported earlier that a number of your colleagues have been receiving emails from constituents on this very issue already.
Thanks, Kieran. And look, congratulations to Aaron. I haven't had a chance to call him to say well done, mate. So it'll be good to see you down on the football field in a couple of weeks' time, and in Parliament, of course, as well. Look, yeah, I've been receiving a few emails about this. I think people want to know a bit more about it. But as you've said, it was something we took to the election. It's been kicking around for about 2 years, and we made our intentions very clear. These are modest changes, which will only apply to 0.5% of people with more than $3 million in super. And we need it to fund some of our commitments into health and education and building more homes. So, yeah, this has been well telegraphed by the government and the Treasurer. And I think people, there's been a bit of attention on it in the last couple of weeks. So I've had a few emails about it. I've been engaging with locals in Bennelong about it too, explaining it a bit more.
So when you explain it, what's the message from from the front line of a local MP to those that might be concerned?
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of media on it, so people are just asking about it. I think the first thing is once people realise it's for people with over $3 million in super. I mean, 99.5% of Australians will not be impacted by this change. And then the next thing I highlight is that this changes the concessional tax rate from 15% to 30%, which is still lower than the top tax rate of 45%. I think people see this as very modest changes at a time where we need revenue to fund some of our election commitments. So, I think
Aaron Violi, yep.
Okay.
Yep, Aaron Violi to you, and Jerome's right in saying that they took it to the election. It was part of the campaign, wasn't it?
Well, not everyone did. My new neighbour, the new member for Deakin, is on the record telling a community group at a forum that this was not the government's policy. He actually said, and it's been quoted publicly, that it was not the policy of the government. So he's got some answers that he needs to, some questions he needs to answer for the community in Deakin. He's either deliberately misled them, or he was given that advice from the Treasurer. They kept it very quiet. And there is a few fundamental issues with this policy. The first is the idea that you can tax unrealised capital gains, which essentially is wanting to tax paper profits that don't actually exist. There is no money to pay for those. In my community, as one example, many generational farmers will put their farm into superannuation so their children can work the farm and pay a rent to the older parents, so they've got some income to live on. Now, if that property goes from $2.5 million up to $3.5 million, they've got to pay that additional tax. If the value drops below $3 million, there's no way to claw that loss back. So it is just fundamental tax that you don't tax unrealised capital gains. The other issue really around this is Jerome says it's 0.5. It is not indexed. So $3 million today is not the same as $3 million in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years, which is what we are dealing with when it comes to superannuation. People making decisions today for 30 and 40 years' time. Every Australian, by modelling we've seen this week, that is under 22 will be over $3 million in their superannuation by the time they retire. It feels like a long way away for them, but it's going to impact a lot more Australians than the 0.5 that Jerome and the Treasurer are quoting.
This is going to be obviously an issue that the coalition needs to rally behind, Aaron, and it's something that you can all agree on. Something maybe a bit more complex is the issue of net zero by 2050. What's your position on that?
Well, the coalition have been very clear, and Susan, as our leader, has said that we're going to continue to work through as a collective all of our policies moving forward. Unlike the Labor Party, I note Senator Payman was kicked out of the Labor Party because she wouldn't follow the party line. The two most outspoken cabinet ministers, Mark Dreyfus and Ed Husic, got the chop in the latest reshuffle. Coincidentally, the two that were the most outspoken against the Prime Minister. In the coalition, we welcome diversity of opinion. It's how you get great policies. So there's many things that we need to work through. We need to continue to work through net zero by 2050, but there's other short-term questions that the government actually need to answer, Kieran. Our reporting last week showed that they're about 14% behind their 2030 target. They've not set a 2035 target. The beauty we have in opposition is time, and the world as we see it today will be different in 2 years' time and 3 years' time when the election comes about. So we need to look at what are power prices, how's reliability, how is the transition in 2030, 2035 going as we get to 2050. So there's more questions when it comes to net zero for the government than there are for the opposition, and they're not answering them at the moment.
Mate, Jerome, Laxale, your response to that?
I would say, how much time do you need? We've been having these climate wars for like 20 years now. We've had not one but two elections where the Australian public have backed in our plan, not only for the energy transition but for emissions reduction and for environmental laws to be strengthened and for the establishment of an EPA. Read the tea leaves, Aaron. This is something that the Australian public support, and we should get on with it. And look, absolutely, our targets of 82% renewable energy by 2030 and 43% emissions reduction are really important that we meet them, and we'll go all out to try and do that because we have to, mate. We have to. It's just there's no time to dally on emissions.
What's your 2035 target, Jerome? You can't even hit your 2030 target. You're in government, you're going to fail. Power prices reduced by $2.75. That was a commitment the last election previous. So there's plenty that you said you were going to do and you're not delivering on. So it's time you governed and actually delivered results, not just made promises.
Well, they've got a big majority, that's for sure, off the back of a range of those policies. I know there was that breach on the price, but didn't seem to hurt them at the ballot box, Aaron. And Jerome, on the trade issue, EU talks. We've got 2 minutes left. I want to get both of your thoughts on this. EU talks with the Prime Minister. The Trade Minister says, he confirmed to me earlier on the program, Minister Farrell, he's going to be meeting with the EU Minister for Trade, his counterpart, tomorrow, Jerome.
Look, this is exciting news. I was disappointed, as I'm sure industry was, and we weren't able to reach a deal, in the last term. It's great to see this back on the table and being dealt with at, the top end of negotiations. The Trade Minister, the Prime Minister. Hopefully we can get a deal that's absolutely in our national interest and can give our farmers and industry more access to a really important trading bloc.
Aaron Violi, your thoughts on this? And what about the scenario where they're talking about more security engagement as well, like the EU has done with Japan and Korea?
Look, it's important we look to try and find an agreement with the EU on trade and also if there's security options. But I would say, and I spoke about this publicly at the last time, the geographic indicators, the GIs, we cannot give ground on that. Prosecco in particular is a wine variety in my community, the Yarra Valley. It's really important. And if Prosecco goes, the question is what's next when it comes to other wine varieties. So we need to find a deal if we can, but we cannot trade away the wine industry, the feta industry, other GI indicators. That is a non-negotiable, in my opinion. I know the coalition was strong on that last time. Minister Farrell can't afford to bend on that because it's the start of a slippery slope when it comes to GI. But we do need to look and find an agreement in the best interest of Australia. There's lots of opportunities if we can get the right deal.
Aaron Violi, thanks. And I reckon you might be in line for a promotion on the Liberal front bench. My prediction today, if you are, you'll still come on with Jerome and I on a Monday?
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you for the kind words, Kieran. We'll see what happens, but always happy to turn up. I know that Sam has been promoted and now won't turn up on a Monday. It's disappointing, but Jerome's a great replacement and look forward to seeing you in Canberra, in Parliament and on the soccer field.
Good.
Good on you, mate.
And maybe frontbencher Violi and Jerome, myself here in the studio. It'd be nice to see you all. Thank you for your time today and thank you for your company at home.
Authorised by Aaron Violi, Liberal Party, Lilydale.